A cinematic 16:9 ultra-realistic poster. A middle-aged Hispanic-American man, late 40s, wearing a slightly wrinkled dress shirt in dark slacks, stands at the end of a sleek corporate boardroom. In his hand, partly hidden, is a small USB drive. He looks calm, but intense eyes fixed on a glass wall overlooking a sunset-drenched Denver skyline. Behind him, a younger, confident white male CTO in a sharp suit is mid-presentation to a group of executives with a flashy slide projected on the wall behind him. The CTO is pointing proudly to the new system interface on screen. A woman in her 30s with a tight ponytail seated beside the CTO glances sideways at the older man, her face conflicted. Lighting is golden dramatic with long shadows. The mood is tense, filled with betrayal, silent revenge, and the moment before truth is unleashed. No text, no logos, highly detailed, ultra-realistic, dramatic movie tone. We all appreciate the effort that went into Kelsey's. Jonathan Pierce said his voice is smooth as a Super Bowl ad, but it was built in a pre-containerized era. A system hand-coded by someone without a formal tech background simply can't keep up with the needs of today's federal clients. I sat there spine straight as steel in the 17th floor conference room of Hensley and Mason LLP, eyes locked on the code comparison now flashing across the screen. No one laughed, but the silence was sharp enough to slice skin. Everyone in that room knew exactly who he meant by someone without a formal tech background. I'm Isaac Flores, 42 years old, former interim CTO, currently a senior systems engineer, though everyone knows I was strategically shoved aside 3 months ago when Jonathan took over as official CTO. The system he just publicly dismissed Kelsey's is mine. I built it from the ground up in 2015. It handles over 200,000 legal files, manages confidential data access, tracks billable hours, and ensures compliance with FCPA, HIPAA, and GDPR. Not flashy, not trending, but in 8 years it never crashed. It even saved this firm from a $14 million data breach back in 2018. Now it's being buried, and me along with it. Jonathan clicked the remote again. The Verdant Legal Pro logo exploded onto the screen, sleek, sterile, with just the right amount of Silicon Valley smug. AI-assisted file analysis, blockchain-powered audit trails, containerized deployments, estimated annual ops savings, 4.2. This, he continued, is why I'm proposing we replace Kelsey's with Verdant Legal Pro. My previous firm, Ridgecroft & Boyle, adopted it last year and landed a $50 million contract with the federal government. A few heads nodded. Carter, the COO, tapped his finger on the oak table, unreadable. Emily sat across from me on Jonathan's left. She was taking notes on an iPad, the same iPad I gave her 2 years ago when she got promoted to senior PM. Back then, she was asking me how to set up sandbox environments for an antitrust case. Now she won't even look at me. I can feel the room tilting. Not with panic, but with a quiet, freezing shift like standing in water that's slowly rising and pretending it's fine. After Jonathan became CTO, I stopped getting invites to strategy meetings. I was redirected to system maintenance, no Jira access, no dev environments, no visibility. Now he turns toward me for the first time since the meeting started. That fake, polite smile. "You're still here with us, Isaac?" I didn't respond. He wasn't asking. He was just staking territory. I glanced out through the full-length windows overlooking downtown Denver. The morning sun streaked golden lines onto the pavement below. I used to love this view, its quiet order, its energy. It made me feel like I was part of something meaningful. Now it just made me feel exposed. The meeting wrapped up with Jonathan's closing line. "To lead in the future, we can't stay loyal to the past." Everyone stood. Carter gave a short nod. A few staffers gave Jonathan polite smiles. One junior dev avoided my eyes like I had the plague. Emily walked past me. Her wrist brushed mine right where the bracelet I once gave her used to rest. She flinched. "Sorry," she whispered without meeting my gaze. I said nothing. In the granite-tiled hallway, my shadow stretched all the way to the elevator, like it was trying to escape me. I reached into my pocket and felt the cold edge of the silver USB etched with IF. Inside it was a legacy, an admin-level failover script I wrote 3 years ago. I was supposed to delete it once the system stabilized. I never did. Now I know why. They thought I was just the guy who guarded the gate. But the truth is, I built the entire damn fortress, and I still have the master key. I walked out of the 17th floor without saying goodbye. No need. To them, I was just an outdated system waiting to be decommissioned. The irony, I never went to college. I started coding at 13 on a busted Dell tower my father found at a salvage yard. Every time I fixed a bug, it felt like I was unlocking a secret no one else could see. I don't have a degree hanging on any wall like Jonathan, but over 8 years, I helped this firm save over $12 million in file processing costs. I once stayed up 36 hours straight during a ransomware attack after the entire tech team gave up. I built Kelsey's on 4 second-hand monitors, every line of code hand-tested by me. No AI assist, no DevOps team, no applause. Just a system that worked, quietly, and now they were preparing to bury it, along with me. I still remember the first time Emily walked into my dev pod, fresh out of Stanford, full of fire and questions. She asked about configuring back-end logic for an emergency litigation case. I spent 3 hours walking her through it. "You're like my mentor," she said with that bright-eyed smile. "I don't get why a genius like you hasn't started your own firm." I just shrugged. I never wanted to be the guy in the spotlight. I just wanted to build something that mattered. And I thought I had, until Jonathan showed up. At first, he was just technical strategy advisor, sat in a few meetings, asked sharp surgical questions, never insulting, just precise about latency on 1,000 plus page filings, API compatibility with federal audit tools, disaster recovery time. I answered each one and watched Emily write it all down, carefully. 1 month later, I was off the core team, relocated to legacy system maintenance. The dev rights were quietly revoked. Emily and her squad, half of whom once begged me for code snippets, were now the new face of innovation. Jonathan never confronted me. He simply reshuffled the org chart, renamed teams, cut off back-end access, migrated servers to AWS without notice. I still thought I could adapt, until the Boston data breach scandal. A lawyer had accidentally exposed confidential files to the wrong client. The blame outdated permission protocols. The target Kel size. I built that permission system with 3 layers of authentication. For that failure to happen, only 2 things were possible. Someone deliberately bypassed safeguards, or someone altered the code. I filed a report, traced the logs. Silence. 3 days later, I received a formal request to write an apology memo to avoid legal exposure if the client presses charges. I remember gripping the steering wheel in the parking garage so hard my knuckles bled. The radio was playing, "I still haven't found what I'm looking for." The irony stung worse than the silence. They didn't fire me. They wanted me to confess, to admit Kelsey's had failed, to lay down and die so they could roll out Verdant without resistance. And Emily, she didn't say a word, but one internal doc I stumbled upon showed her new title, Product Transition Lead, Verdant Legal Pro, with bonus equity tied to successful implementation. Now it made sense. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a coup. Erase the old guard, erase the evidence, rewrite the story. But they forgot one thing. I'm the only one who still holds root access to Kelsey's, not the active version, the original skeleton, shadow build. Most people didn't even remember it existed, but I never forgot. That night I came home to my tiny Capitol Hill apartment and opened a rusted fireproof box from under my bed. Inside, an old external hard drive, dusty but intact. I plugged it into my private machine. The green code flickered to life like an old friend waking up from a long nap. And I started typing, not to recover anything, but to prepare something else. A trigger, a kill switch. One that would make everyone in that boardroom sit down and listen. A week after that 17th floor meeting, I got an email from HR. Subject official notice, internal system transition, body 3 lines. Kelsey's will be fully replaced by Verdant Legal Pro next quarter. Data migration is in progress. Please support the transition team as needed. No thank you. No mention of the 8 years I'd spent treating that system like a living, breathing thing. I replied with a single word. Noted. What they didn't know was while they were copying Kelsey's for retirement, I was copying something else. From Shadow. Not user data. I didn't need it. What I took was the behavior of the system. Its internal logs build history metadata of every execution from the production environment. And what I started to find made my blood run cold. Entire code blocks identical in Verdant Legal Pro and Kelsey's. Same logic, same structure, even the same comment lines. One of them read, "Chafix by IF. Avoid loop on federal cases." My initials, still there. Word for word. Verdant wasn't new. Verdant was plagiarized. Jonathan didn't just push to kill Kelsey's. He cannibalized it, rebranded it, monetized it, then sold it back to the firm like some messianic product he pulled from the heavens. But I needed proof. Hard proof. That night I went to the 9th floor of the old server lab that once housed Kelsey's core. Now it was mostly abandoned. A few blinking rack lights still flickered like forgotten memories. My badge still worked, another oversight by the new guard. I plugged in, authenticated, encrypted my tunnel. Deep in the archive logs, I found anomalies IP addresses that weren't on any approved whitelist, timestamps that lined up with the Boston breach, and the kicker API access using an admin account emily.davenport@hensleymason.com, same day as the breach. I wanted to believe she was caught in the crossfire, but the log said otherwise. 2 days later, Jonathan led a training session for the tech team. On the whiteboard, he was sketching Verdant's new architecture. He referred to me as Isaac from Legacy Support and asked if I had any thoughts. I smiled. "Just here to refill the coffee, boss." Some of the junior devs chuckled. So did Jonathan. But when our eyes locked, I saw it. A flicker. Something in him knew. That night I got an anonymous signal message. One line, "Leave Emily out of this." She didn't have a choice. No threat. No bluster. Just a warning. I stared at the message for a long time. And then I remembered something from the boardroom. Emily had left her iPad on the table. I caught a glimpse before the screen dimmed. A live dashboard from Verdant admin level. Not just project management. She had full access. Was she monitoring something, or was someone monitoring her? 3 days later, I called the one man who knew the value of Kelsey's better than anyone, Henry Chang, co-founder of Hensley and Mason, long retired now, living on a farm in Boulder. "Henry," I said over the phone, my voice tight, "Verdant isn't what it claims to be." Silence, then he spoke slow and deliberate. "What do you need from me?" I took a breath. "Full transfer of your legacy shares. Every last percent." 51. Exactly. He let out a long sigh. "You realize they'll lose their minds, right?" I answered with one sentence. "I also realize the truth needs a bomb to go with it." 10 minutes later, an email landed in my inbox with a signed meeting request from Henry's lawyer. I drove to Boulder on a foggy Saturday morning, the air still heavy with silence. At Henry Chang's old farmhouse, I sat across from him at a weathered wooden table, slid the contract over, and he signed it without asking a single question. "You're not even going to ask why," I said. Henry just shook his head. "I don't need to know the plan. I only need to know you're the last person here who still gives a damn about this firm's integrity." With that signature, I officially became the majority shareholder of Hensley and Mason, 51%. Most of it had been quietly repurchased by Henry over the years from retiring partners post-COVID. I didn't plan to make the announcement right away. Not yet. Not until I had one more piece of strike that couldn't be ignored or spun. Back in Denver, I updated Shadow's environment and wrote a diagnostic tool to scan for code overlap between Kelsey's and Verdant. What came back nearly knocked the air out of me. 34 code blocks matched line for line. 4 of them included my personal debug signature floors in an identifier I built into early modules for troubleshooting. They weren't just copying code. They were copying my fingerprint and stamping it with their own label, proprietary IP of Verdant Legal Pro. I finally saw the full scope. This wasn't a migration. This was a cover-up. Burn the original, sell the counterfeit. Inside the office, rumors were swirling. Memos about mandatory retraining and system realignment hit inboxes. Emily led internal onboarding for Verdant coaching attorneys like a seasoned tech evangelist. I sat in the back row, quiet watching. She avoided my gaze all morning. At one point, she stepped out to take a call. Her iPad sat unattended on the podium. I quietly stood, walked over, and tapped the screen. Unlocked. The admin dashboard of Verdant stared back. Right there in her inbox was a draft email titled Phase 3 Confirmation, Equity Allocation for Emily D. I took screenshots. Calm, methodical. When she came back and saw me in my seat, she paused. A flicker of alarm passed over her face, but she kept going, pretending nothing happened. She knew I'd seen it, and I knew she knew. That night, I got another anonymous email. Stop. This isn't just about tech. It's internal politics at the highest level. If you expose Emily, she won't survive another week in this industry. No threats, just truth, raw and ugly. I stared at the message, then opened an old photo from my archives. Me and Emily hunched over a dual monitor setup at 3 a.m., grinning like kids after finally debugging a multi-client error. Her hand was on my shoulder, her hair a mess. No makeup, just trust. She believed in me once. I believed in her too. Now, 2 days later, an official invitation hit my inbox: quarterly board meeting, agenda tech transition finalization. Jonathan was scheduled to present the Verdant launch plan, including the $18 million 3-year contract. For the first time ever, I was invited to attend as a shareholder. I responded with one sentence: I'll be making a brief presentation. That night, my phone rang from a blocked number. It was Emily. "Don't drag me down with you," she whispered. "You don't understand. Jonathan controls more than just this rollout. I can't lose everything." I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not dragging you anywhere," I replied, "but you have a choice to make: accomplice or witness." She hung up. No rebuttal, no tears, just silence. I turned back to my laptop, looked at the neatly arranged folders: source code comparisons, email chains, admin logs, Henry's signed transfer, all filed under a folder named The Verdict. The next morning, I suited up in charcoal black. No tie, just a deep navy shirt beneath the jacket. When I walked into the 18th floor boardroom, everything was already set. Jonathan was fine-tuning his slides, Emily beside him, clutching her iPad like a lifeline. I walked to the far end of the table, placed my silver USB drive on the polished wood, and nodded at Carter, who gave me a subtle nod back. Jonathan looked up, smirked. "Well, Isaac didn't expect to see you here," he said, oozing condescension. "Glad you're getting a front row seat to what modern tech looks like." I smiled, slow and sharp. "And you," I said, "are about to learn what consequences look like." The boardroom door clicked shut behind me like the gavel at the start of a trial. 8 people sat around the long mahogany table, every member of the executive board and major shareholders of Hensley and Mason. Carter sat in the center, arms folded, eyes tracking every move like a judge overseeing a federal case. Jonathan stood confidently near the main screen, radiating the slick energy of a startup founder about to drop a bombshell IPO. His slides were pristine, his hair gelled to corporate perfection. He paced out to the center with the confidence of a man who thought he'd already won. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I present to you the final phase of our tech modernization strategy at Hensley and Mason." His voice was crisp, practiced. The pacing was textbook TED Talk. He outlined the alleged shortcomings of Kelsey's: rising maintenance costs, compatibility issues with new federal audit standards, sluggish response times on large files. I said nothing. Let him walk straight into his own trap. And the solution, Jonathan continued, switching to his final slide, is a fully integrated AI-driven platform. Verdant Legal Pro. Projected savings, $4.2 million per year. New contract, $18 million over 3 years. Projected launch, 60 days. There were some nods around the table. Quiet murmurs of interest. Jonathan flashed his winning smile. "And now, unless there are any objections?" He turned toward me with that same condescending glint in his eye. "Isaac, I believe you're here as part of the legacy tech team. Would you like to share a few words?" I stood, walked to the head of the table, and slid my silver USB into the console port. The projector flickered. New slide. Bold text. Kelsey's versus Verdant Legal Pro. Source code comparison. Silence fell across the room like a curtain. Jonathan's jaw twitched. "I'll keep this under 3 minutes," I said. "Not about cost, not about performance. Just one thing: integrity. Slide 1 side-by-side modules. Kelsey's code on the left, Verdant on the right, identical. Slide to another module. Comment line on both versions, Schottky. fixed by IF, avoid loop on federal cases. My initials, left untouched, word for word. Jonathan stood frozen. Slide 3 internal emails pulled from Verdant's sandbox environment. Timestamps, access logs, admin login, jonathan.pierceridgecroft.com. Emily didn't look up from her iPad. Her hands were trembling. Verdant isn't a new product, I said calmly. It's a repackaged copy of Kelsey's, with my code, my signature, and sold back to this firm under a different name. More silence. Then Carter spoke. These are serious allegations. Do you have evidence that Hensley and Mason's intellectual property was compromised? I do, I replied. And if needed, I'll take it to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office along with federal court. The room shifted, eyes darted, chairs creaked. Jonathan's face was a slow-motion implosion. And then I pulled out one last file. One more thing I said, sliding a folder across the table. This is a notarized transfer of 51% ownership of Hensley and Mason LLP. From Henry Chang. Mouths opened. No sound came out. Jonathan's face drained of color. His lips moved, but no words followed. I turned toward him. That means every strategic tech decision, including your $18 million deal, needs my approval. Carter leaned forward, fingers tented under his chin. I recommend we suspend all rollout activities for Verdant immediately and open a full investigation. Jonathan shot up, his voice cracking into a shout. This is a setup. He's been planning this for months. This was all to take me down. No one moved. He turned to Emily, desperate. You knew you were in this too. You signed off on everything. She looked up at him for the first time. Her voice was soft but clear. Can you send me that dashboard screenshot again, Isaac? She said. I'd like to file my first honest report in 3 months. 2 weeks after that meeting, Jonathan Pierce was officially suspended pending internal investigation. But I knew deep down his days here were over. He didn't fight, didn't make a statement. He vanished. Some said he fled Denver. Others claimed he scrubbed his LinkedIn, deleted every trace of himself from the legal tech world, as if he'd never existed. I didn't chase him. I had bigger things to handle. Carter invited me to lunch at the Brown Palace downtown. Private room, old school steakhouse vibe. He nursed a glass of whiskey the entire time. I have to admit, he said, swirling the ice in his glass, you timed that strike like a sniper. I didn't smile. But 51% is a dangerous weapon, Isaac, he added. What are you planning to do with it? I took a sip of water. Nothing. He blinked. Nothing. I'm not here to rule. I'm here to protect, I said. Kelsey's is the spine of this firm. I won't let it be dismantled by people chasing buzzwords and quick exits. Carter leaned back, nodding slowly. Honestly, the board's relieved, but they're also terrified of you. I'm okay with that, I said. Fear is fine, as long as it's honest. A few days later, Emily emailed me. Subject internal access logs. Verdant attached over 200 lines of server access logs, IPs, admin logins, file pulls. Clear as day. Jonathan had used her credentials to clone and manipulate the code base. The body of the email was short. I was wrong to think I could stay in the middle, between truth and power. But sometimes silence equals complicity. Thank you for not humiliating me in front of everyone. This is all I have. I replied 15 minutes later. You can still do the right thing, but don't send me anything else. Save yourself, Emily. I didn't fire anyone. Didn't call for resignations. No vendettas. No public shaming. I called a tech team meeting instead. Old developers. New hires. Everyone who cared about building, not just branding. I walked to the whiteboard and wrote one sentence in bold black marker, Kelsey's Genesis, version 2.0. I'm not here to patch leaks, I said. I'm here to start over. Modular, scalable, transparent. And this time we open source part of it. Let the legal aid clinics have access. No gatekeeping. The room was still. Then Jay, a junior dev who used to be Jonathan's golden boy, spoke up. I'd love to lead the OCR integration. If that's still open, I nodded. Emily didn't show up, but the next day I got an email from a Chicago-based legal tech nonprofit asking about a possible collaboration on an open blockchain-based case management tool. Referral contact Emily Davenport. 3 months later, I attended the firm's annual shareholder meeting. No big speech, no USB drive, Just one slide, Kelsey's 2.0. Beta build 98% complete, zero critical bugs. This time the applause wasn't polite. It was earned. Henry Chang texted me that night from his farm outside Boulder. You gave our system a soul again. Now it's truly yours. I didn't hold on to the 51% stake. 6 months in, I redistributed most of it through an internal ESOP. Tech, legal, HR, everyone who actually made the place work got a share. I kept just 1%, enough to keep a seat at the table. Not to speak, just to listen. Exactly 1 year later, I received a package at my apartment. No return label. Inside an old iPad, the one I gave Emily, and a small handwritten note. I wish we could start over. But at least I chose the right side before it was too late. I put the iPad in a drawer. Didn't erase it. Didn't turn it on. Just let it sit there like a sealed chapter. I survived. And somewhere between the silence and the dust, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always need fire. Sometimes it just needs light to shine into the dark, so the lies have nowhere left to hide.